G'day everyone, my name's David Burton and I'm the playwright of many different plays, but today we're talking about Wisdom, which is a play I wrote in 2020 for high schoolers. We're going to go through some of the story behind writing the play and how I came up with the play, talking about different productions, and also different things you might want to explore in your classroom and different tips for performing the work. If you want to hear more about theatre and more about books and reading and plays, including some others I've written, then please make sure to like and subscribe. But let's talk about Wisdom. So Wisdom started in 2019 when I was commissioned by the Queensland Theatre Company to write a new play for something called the Scene Project. Now, if you're from Queensland and you are a drama student or a drama teacher, then you probably are familiar with the Scene Project. But it's a really unique, interesting project that's been running, I think, since about 2014, 2015, where a playwright is commissioned to compose an original work. And that work is put on professionally by a team of about 4 actors and 2 around to schools. At the same time, the script is made open to high schools so that students can access it. And while Queensland Theatre Company is making their production, students around the country are making their production. So then there get to be these fantastic days at the end of the term where Queensland Theatre Company comes and different schools come and you watch all these different versions of the same show. Because of that, the shows are usually written kind of open-ended with lots of room for interpretation. Because to a certain extent, the playwright is only ever really writing it going, well, here's a suggestion, here's an offer, with the hope that actors and students will interpret it and put on a bunch of different interpretations of it. So with that in mind, the brief for the playwright is weird. This is the second scene project I've written. I wrote the first one called The Landmine Is Me with my co-writer Claire Christian. We'll discuss that in another video coming up. But I was contacted by the Associate Artistic Director at the time, Travis Dowling, and I pitched a work. The work for scene projects have to be fairly weird. They have to be able to be performed by a cast as small as 4, but as big as 27. You need characters that can be of either gender, because some schools are single-sex schools that are going to be performing it, and they need to be able to access the work. And you also need to make sure that there's something in there for people who like physical theatre, something in there for people who want a really like honest to goodness scene with like subtext and different ideas. So you've kind of got to, and for different lengths as well. So for that reason, there's a number of scenes in the play, first of all, that are optional, that can be completely lifted out, and I'll talk about them in a sec. And there is a key main story. Where did the idea for the key main story come from? Well, at the time, in 2018, 2019, there was this kind of wave of huge youth activism, and it was led by Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg, who some of you may know, depending on when you're watching this video, was a big youth climate change activist, and she was in the front of the news at this point in time. And there were a number of other really amazing youth activists who kind of inspired this lead character of Juno. That was one thing. The other thing that really inspired it was this idea of what is maturity and what does it mean to be someone who is ready to be a fully participating citizen out there in the world. I've always been politically inclined, particularly as a young person. I think I was more educated politically about how the political world works at 14 than I was than many people in their 20s or 30s who I know. And I've always been pretty mature for my age. So I just remember constantly being frustrated as a teenager and feeling like the world was patronizing me and talking down to me. And as I work with teenagers and work more in schools and so on now as a boring old adult, I get that feeling well and truly now. There's so much in terms of youth culture that I know young people are frustrated about, including climate change is top of mind, but a number of different political issues where the generational divide between those who are making decisions, so millennials and boomers, and Gen Zers and those who are experiencing, and Gen Alpha, those who are experiencing the current day concerns about technology and climate change. There just seems to be a great big divide. So finding a way to explore that divide in an interesting kind of magical and satirical way, I came up with this dystopian idea, where this dystopia is that in Australia, everybody kind of stops aging at age 15 or 16 physically, which meant that also we could get round cast members of 15 or 16-year-olds playing any age that they wanted to, and not without having to put on makeup and weird things like that. So that was the key ideas. The other big idea that I went to was going, well, how can I portray that? What is the dramatic meaning? What's the central dramatic question of wisdom? And part of it is, what does it take to be a good citizen? An informed person who makes informed and interesting and careful decisions about how a society should operate. You know who else as a playwright was incredibly interested in those ideas? The ancient Greeks. In fact, the ancient Greeks, in a lot of their art and a lot of the things that they built and wrote about, invented democracy, and also invented and have really informed the way that Roman civilization went on, and the way we talk about white Western culture is from those ideas, for better or worse. So a lot of the character names in Wisdom are drawn from ancient Western stories, whether it be Greek or Roman, or even the Bible. There's a bunch of different names here that are deep with meaning. And I also implemented this idea of the chorus. The chorus in ancient Greek drama and for Shakespearean drama is basically a channel for the audience, is the bystanders, is the townspeople, are the people who are there and are putting forward, well, this is the party line. Romeo and Juliet, there's a chorus, and the chorus says at the top of the play, Romeo and Juliet are going to die. And this is the way the story goes, because there was violence on the streets, right? I mucked around with this idea, well, what if the chorus had some rebellion inside it? The chorus is this great harmonious voice of the audience or the people watching. So in the chorus, I went, okay, what's different ways I can split the chorus up to start having this debate on stage, and using the chorus in a way that the ancient Greeks used it, but also in a new way. That was part of the idea. So I really do encourage, if you're starting out looking at Wisdom, to maybe Google some of the names and think about what they might mean and what different characters might represent, and to muck around with and play with how you stage the chorus. There's the central chorus, and they start out as a harmonious group. And as the play moves on, they get split up into different groups, A, B, C, and D. And D is the most rebellious, and A is the most ordered and the most obedient to the government party line, with B and C sitting somewhere in between. How you choose to stage the chorus has the potential for immense dramatic meaning. So if you've got 16 students, let's say, and you make D, the rebellious part of the chorus, one person, and everybody else split across the 15, then this one person, there's my finger, this one person who ends up in position D, it might come across that they're being incredibly bullied, or we might want to stand up for them, or we might not believe in them because they're just one person, and the other three kind of choruses may seem more right. Or vice versa. If 14 students or 13 students are chorus D, and there's one chorus C, one chorus B, and one chorus A, then all of a sudden that makes it. And that's just with numbers alone. What if you divide it with different gender? What if you divide it in different languages? There may be some people in your classroom who English is not their first language. So if someone who is English is their not first language, or they have a different color skin, or a different disability, they might use their body in a different way. You can construct all sorts of different meanings depending on how you stage that chorus. And I love students to have that debate internally and to talk about what are the different ways that we can present this idea. There are also a number of scenes that can lift in and lift out of wisdom. I just need to remind myself of what it is. The favourite that tends to get done a lot is the handball scene, and then there's the sibling scene. The one that people get tricky on is pirate. Pirate's a really difficult monologue to nail. And right here, right now, I'm going to tell you the secret to pirate if you haven't figured it out. My intention in writing it was that pirate was an elderly person experiencing dementia, but in a 15 or 16-year-old's body. Now, is that clear? No. But there's a bunch of different ways you can interpret that. And I've seen some great, really imaginative, creative ways of playing with the idea of pirate. There's also, of course, the potential for you to write your own scene, for you to create your own kind of characters in this world that can satirize or pick up on a different aspect of something that the play is dealing with. Any of the characters can be any gender, and really wisdom is one big fat invitation to you to go, here's a bunch of ideas, play around with them. So that's wisdom. Please leave your comment or query below. I'd love to answer any other questions you have or hear about your production of wisdom or your interpretation. I really like how schools have gotten on board with it. And as I'm talking to you in 2024, Grin and Tonic are on the road with wisdom, doing a two-hander version of wisdom, which I've rewritten with them. And it's also around in 2025. So thank you so much for reading the work and for being involved with the work. I'd love to hear from you more. But yes, I'll talk to you soon.